that spiritual truth with a material truth, that in this culture, in this society, because of how we are treated, we are not actually the same, right? That's the contradiction to navigate, because when I was growing up as a young white person, I was taught that I was supposed to be colorblind, right? And if y'all have heard that before? Yeah, some people are like, okay, where's this going? I learned pretty quickly that being any kind of blind is not such a good thing, right? That I needed a new pair of glasses because racism is a system and patriarchy is a system, right? And we're all a part of it. And that system makes itself invisible, especially to white folks on purpose. One thing I've learned is that what better way to see the intricacies of a system than by challenging it, right? Oh. So it's hard to talk about systems of power here in Maricopa County without giving a shout out to the devil himself, Arizona's resident fascist, Sheriff Joe Arpaio.
Fuck you, motherfucker!
Right? Oh, Joe. So I don't need to tell you about Joe, but how many of y'all know that after 2 federal court cases and a Department of Justice investigation, he's finally up on criminal charges right now? And here's the good news. In just a few days, y'all can be part of a huge movement led by mi gente to kick that motherfucker out of office if you vote on November 8th.
But you gotta vote.
Y'all ready to stand up? Y'all ready to be part of that? Yeah? Here's my Joe Arpaio story. So back in 2010, when they started to implement the SB 1070 racial profiling law, boo, right? I came down to Arizona, I came down to Phoenix to support local organizations in solidarity, Puente and Tonatiuh. And on the day that they tried to implement that law, when they were doing raids in communities trying to separate mothers from children, send them through the jail system, we blockaded those jails peacefully so that nobody could be moved through them. Right? After a week of actions all throughout Phoenix, I was one of the folks who ended up getting arrested with community members, and I went through that jail system. And there's a lot that I could say about that, but one thing I want to point out in this conversation is the kid that was sleeping on the slab of concrete next to me was a 17-year-old kid who was brought here when he was 2 years old from El Salvador. And he was just hanging out, and Sheriff Arpaio's goons roughed him up on the street, and he had a little bit of weed on him, so he was taken in. They were putting him through a system to try to deport him. He didn't even speak Spanish, yo. He was being deported to a country that for all intents and purposes he had never been to, not allowed to talk to his family. And I had a moment where I was like, oh, I'm going through this crazy prison system, but because of my papers, because of my white skin, I know that I'm gonna get out in a couple days and I'm gonna be okay, right? That's white privilege, right? Because this kid was indigenous to Turtle Island. If you erase all these invisible borders, right, his ancestry was here first. So if we're talking about privilege then, part of what we're having a conversation about for me is realizing our role in the system. And as I started to realize my role, I started to get this guilt. Y'all have heard of this thing called white guilt? Oh, it's so gross, right? It's so heavy.
It's a lot of weight to carry around.
Oh, it was way too much weight. I had to let that shit go. I had to get out of my own way in order to stand up in solidarity. And that's why I, as a white person, support the migrant rights movement. That's why I support Black Lives Matter. That's why I support I Don't Know More. That's why I support the climate justice movement. And guess what? Y'all can too. That's our work together to embrace that humility and take a stand. Are y'all with me?
Yes.
Yes. I like to hear.
Wow, y'all make some noise to Joshua. That was a deep witness right there. That was really beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Joshua. Appreciate that. That really helps in my segue here. And so now, check it out. The pre-chorus is